Hello all, welcome to the wireless backdoors with the hosted network video. Now this video is part of the Security Tube Wi-Fi Security Expert certification, and this is addendum 2 to the Wi-Fi Mega Primer. So as some of you may be knowing, the SWSE is an online certification which we've launched based on the Wi-Fi Mega Primer. If you have not heard about it, I would really encourage you to visit /certifications and have a look at it. Okay, so now coming to the topic, creating an access point on a client device. Now, if you remember, in the case of Linux, we did a lot of interesting things using the Airbase NG utility as part of the Mega Primer series, and where we used to create all of these different access points, open, web, WPA and WPA2. So we all know for sure that we can create an access point on Linux, but can we do the same for Windows? Now this is where on Linux this is pretty much solved. You have host ABT, Airbase NG, but on Windows there was nothing available until Microsoft announced the hosted network feature. Now this is basically generation 2.0 of the client software, and this feature is only available Windows 7 and Server 2008 R2 onwards. So this is not available in Windows Vista, XP or any of these operating systems. Now what is the whole idea? The idea is to have multiple virtual adapters on top of the actual physical adapter, and to create a soft AP using these virtual adapters. So let me read out what this feature is, and this is very interesting, I can assure you. With this feature, a Windows computer can use a single physical wireless adapter to connect as a client to a hardware access point, while at the same time acting as a software AP, allowing other wireless capable devices to connect to it. Now this is very interesting. Why? Because the client side of the adapter connected to a regular hard access point can exist at the same time as the soft AP feature which is running on the same laptop, which means they are not mutually exclusive, right? So why was this feature created? Well, this was created to allow personal area networks and for internet connection sharing for the devices behind it. So let's say you are in a hotel and you only have access to one device on the internet, but you want to connect your phone, your tablet and all of that to the internet as well. So you can enable the hosted network feature on your laptop and then do internet connection sharing with all of these devices. Okay, so let's look at a demonstration of the hosted network. Now, hopefully all of you are familiar with the netsh WLAN series of commands, and that is our friend in this case as well. So netsh WLAN set hosted network mode is equal to allow SSID. Now, if you have to create an access point, you need an SSID, right? And this is that SSID which you mentioned. And key is actually a WPA2 PSK passphrase which you need to mention to create this access point. So one quick note, on Windows, unlike on Linux, you really cannot create an Open AP, a Web AP or a WPA PSK AP. The only option, again, the only option you have is to create a WPA2 PSK AP, right? So how do we do it? Let's quickly create an access point. netsh WLAN set hosted network. So let's open up an admin terminal. Right? Now, before I do anything, what I want to draw your attention to is that I am connected to my home access point. Right? Why is this interesting? because you can create the soft AP while you still remain connected to the hardware AP. This is fantastic, because which means you can use the adapter for two things at the same time. So we have net SH WLAN, and then I'm pretty bad at remembering stuff. Set hosted network mode allow. Set hosted network mode is equal to allow, and then you have the SSID. Let's say I call it soft AP demo, and then you have the key, which has to be between 8 to 63 characters, which I can call soft AP demo key, right? Now when you go ahead and run this command, the hosted network is configuration is created, but the network itself is not enabled, right? Now in order to create this network entirely, you need to go ahead and run net sh WLAN, and then after that basically start the hosted network with start hosted network, right? Start hosted network. Now before I do that, let me actually show you my connection currently. So on my Mac, I'm monitoring all the access points in the region, and if you notice, currently I can only see Vivek and probably an ad hoc network called HV setup, right? Let's see what happens once I enable the hosted network, right? Now the point to note is, while this is enabled, I am still connected. So it says hosted network started, but note, inside this VM, I still remain connected, right, to Vivek. Okay, which means there is no connection loss of any kind, and this is very, very important. No connection loss. One of the other important things also you need to note is that there was no prompt or anything which came up on the screen. Did you see anything which said you just created the hosted network? No. So now if you go ahead and monitor the air, you should actually see a new AP called soft AP demo. Fantastic. What this actually means is we could be able to connect to this soft AP remotely, right? So we could actually connect to this, and that would mean you end up getting connected to this computer and you have IP access. Okay, so let's go back here. Now the most important thing, as I've stressed upon, is that the client remains connected to the hardware AP. And of course this is the feature, which is you connect to the hardware AP, you bring up the soft access point, and there are other devices which can come connect to you, and then probably you can do an internet connection sharing, right? So how could this be used to create a Wi-Fi backdoor? Well, you could conceive of a malware which, once it infects the system, creates a backdoor, right? And this could use a key which could be a fixed key, which is the WPA2 PSK key, or which is derived from the MAC address of the host computer, time of the day, or a bunch of other things. Now, as the host remains connected to the authorized network, the user does not notice a break-in of any kind, right? Nor are there any prompts or any alert messages which are displayed. So if you could imagine, rather than me typing this, let's say a malware infects the machine, of course gets admin access, which is practically what most malware would eventually get, maybe because users are running in admin mode, or maybe it does a privilege escalation attack. After that, it can go ahead and just run these two commands and create the soft AP, right? Now at this point, basically the user has no idea that the software AP is up and running, because he still remains connected to the hardware AP. Now the only way he can figure it out, if he goes to the network connections, right, and looks at all available network adapters, right, and this is the network adapter which is connected to the normal access point Vivek, and this is the one which is actually the virtual Wi-Fi mini port adapter which is connected, which is actually creating the soft API, right? Now, one could very easily imagine that once the hacker sees that this access point is up and running, he could go ahead and connect to this API. So I'm not able to see it once again. The hosted network is up and running. Right, and one could very easily, a hacker could try connect to this access point and gain IP level access to your computer. So there are tons of things which are possible, which one can do and one can figure out. He can enter the WPA passphrase, which probably his mal code would allow him to derive. Leave that to you. So the interesting thing which I'd like to mention here is that this accentuates rogue access points. How does it do that? So the first question is, what is a rogue API? Now, in an enterprise, a rogue API is actually a physical access point which is an unauthorized device which could be brought in by a malicious insider or an outsider somehow into the premises, and it is connected to the authorized network. Now, as you can imagine, the hacker could remain pretty much well outside the network and connect to the authorized network, actually bypassing the internet firewall, the IDSs and all of that at the network edge, and be able to access the authorized network. So rogue APIs, if you ask any network administrator, are one of the biggest challenges and problems. Now, as you can imagine, the hosted network feature is actually making a rogue API out of every single Windows 7 client on the enterprise. And what is the best part or the most difficult thing for the system administrator to detect this? There is no extra hardware required. I mean, in the case of an actual hardware API, rogue API scenario, he could actually hunt around, scout around, figure out where the rogue API is connected, and then detach it. But in this case, basically, the rogue API is running on the Windows 7 client. Now, a lot of people may kind of point out, if you look at the hosted network architecture, that you are not allowed to bridge it to the internet connection, or sorry, the wired LAN. But here is the thing, you could always have a piece of malcode which goes ahead and picks data up from one interface and pushes it through the other one in user space. I mean, just because bridging is not allowed at the operating system level doesn't mean a program cannot be written which can just quickly, transparently proxy the data from one interface to the other, right? Okay, from a hacker's perspective, what could be the advantages? Well, typically, he would connect to the internet and try and connect to the victim, where there would be a lot of back tracing which could be possible, right? Maybe you're running a MetaPredator MVC session or something of that sort, but a lot of logs could be generated. But now, basically, he does not require any access through any public network to connect to the victim. Instead, he can directly connect to the wicked network which his malcode or he himself may have created at some point on the victim's system, right? Now you may ask, well, yes, I can connect to the victim over Wi-Fi, but how do I have full control? Answer is simple. If you can have any malcode run on the victim system, you own the system. So you could actually embed a backdoor which listens to a specific port or does something else which could be even more interesting. And whenever you are in Wi-Fi range, you connect to the wicked network with the key you can derive along with your malcode, and then a backdoor is waiting for you for full access on the system. So that part is trivial once you can infect the user's machine, right? So I think a lot of stuff which I've already summarized is the victim doesn't notice anything unusual, because when the hosted network is created, there are no alerts of any kind. Second, the attacker is connecting to the victim over a private network, which means no wired side network logs, firewall, IDS, IPS, nothing is going to be triggered, right? Finally, this is abuse of a legitimate feature, and hence this is not going to be picked up by any antivirus or malware, at least for the time being. Okay, so I think this was a very interesting feature, has been around for some time, called the hosted network. If you are doing a wireless penetration testing, one of the things which you can check for is if the hosted network feature is allowed on all of the computers you are testing on. And let's say you do a penetration test where you break into a computer over the wired network, you could enable the hosted network with a known key, start a backdoor and have backdoor access to the computer, even if it is detached from the wired LAN. And the best part is the victim could still remain connected to the wireless LAN. He would never know that the hosted network is actually running in the background, right? So from a penetration testing perspective, this is a gold mine. Anyway, once you create the hosted network, try using WPA supplicant on Linux to see if you can go ahead and connect to this WPA2 PSK network, right? Quick question, are there any challenges in connecting? This is something we will discuss in the SecurityTube Wi-Fi Security Expert Certification webinars, where, I'll guide you through how to go about this process. Okay, lab exercise 2. Find the APIs on Windows which allow you to manipulate the Wi-Fi card. You can find all of them on MSDN. Locate the APIs and code snippets which allow you to create a very simple network scanner up in the air, right? This scanner would work exactly as WLAN NetSH show networks would work as. And I can tell you, no programming required. The code snippet has been beautifully laid out on MSDN, a wonderful, wonderful resource for anything related to Windows, right? So this lab exercise we will go ahead and discuss in the appropriate webinar. Please check the webinar timings in your student portal, and you should find when we will discuss this specific lab. Finally, an assignment before we come to an end. Can you think of how car metasploit works and what are the main challenges in it? And then, could it be possible for car metasploit to use the hosted network feature in an interesting way, right? And then finally, different ways by which a malware could abuse the hosted network feature, which you need to be aware of so that you can provide best practices to the network administrator for companies you pen test on. If you have any interesting ideas, you can leave it in the students forum or in the comment section below. So that's all for this video. People watching this on SecurityTube, this video is part of the SecurityTube Wi-Fi Security Expert online certification. We, as part of our free InfoSec education initiative, have released this free of charge on SecurityTube like all other course videos. So if you like this, please leave a comment behind, and if you're looking for a good certification, I would really encourage you to check out SecurityTube Wi-Fi Security Expert in /certifications on the same website. Student benefits, tons of them, access to the portal, full course coverage in the form of webinars and doubt clearing webinars, Q&A forums, the PDF slides for all of this, all future course updates. Know that this is lifetime. If you take the certification course plus exam once, you get all course updates for a lifetime. I don't think anyone can match this. Finally, a mock exam, and then the final certification examination, which will be a totally hands-on exam where you log on to a lab and do a live penetration test of an enterprise network created around you. Of course, once you pass the exam, we will mail the actual physical copy of the certification to your address. That's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. hope to see you in the next video, where we look at how we can go ahead and use the hosted network to wirelessly connect and maybe leverage a machine along with Metasploit.